a grossing tutorial video on how to process cervical cone biopsies and cervical LEEP specimens or loop electrosurgical excision procedure specimens. We're looking at the superficial aspect of the cervix or a cervical cone biopsy here. So this is all ectocervical mucosa or squamous mucosa. If we flip it over to the deep aspect, we're looking at the endocervical margin or the stroma or deep aspect of the cervical cone biopsy. And we do know that this is a cervical cone biopsy because there's no cautery artifact here. With a LEEP, you're going to have some cautery artifact. With cone biopsies, you should not have any cautery artifact. There's an opening here which goes into the endocervix. Once again, this is the deep aspect. So going back to the superficial side of the cervical cone biopsy, we can locate the os, or the external os of the cervix. And for this specimen in particular, it's located right in the central portion of the specimen, which is nice. It's a slit-like os, okay? Right in the center here, there's a slit-like os. And it's important to note that surrounding the os is a bunch of congested mucosa, maybe even ulcerated mucosa, okay? Now, the cervical os is not always located right in the center of the specimen. Sometimes you can have an eccentric os, you can have a marginal os, so just be aware of that. What we're going to do next, we typically, we handle the LEEP specimens and the cervical cone biopsies the same as far as inking and sectioning. They're just a little bit different in appearance. Once again, the LEEP specimens have cautery artifact. The cone biopsies do not. And usually the cone biopsies are a little bit deeper, in my experience, than the cervical LEEP specimens. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over, and we're going to ink the ectocervical margin one color, and then the endocervical margin another color. We're going to use black for the ectocervical margin, and then blue for the endocervical margin. So here's some black ink. We're just going to put black ink around the periphery of the ectocervical mucosa or the ectocervical margin. And then we're going to take some blue ink. Some blue ink here. And we're going to ink the endocervical margin another color, just like that. We'll use a little bit of vinegar as a mordant to make the ink stick. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. So we're back to the cervical cone biopsy. As you recall, I inked the ectocervical margin here black all the way around, the endocervical margin blue. And now we're just going to section it and submit it in a sequential fashion. Now, if it's an unoriented cone biopsy or cervical LEEP specimen, there's no real reason to have these 12, 3, 6, and 9 markers in front of you. You basically just section it, you submit it sequentially, and then you're done. But I just want to give you an example of how to do these type of specimens if they are oriented. Say, for example, there's a suture here at 12 o'clock, okay? So what I like to do is, I'm actually going to zoom in real quick. So what I like to do is I like to find the cervical os. Once I find it, I like to take the long axis, which is actually going this way, okay, and make that the 9 and 3 o'clock long axis. And then from that point, we can start sectioning. Now, the typical way that, textbook way of doing these specimens is to do it like a pie-shaped-like fashion, like this, like this, like this, like this, pie-shaped-like fashion. But there's some drawbacks to that, so we don't do that here. So what I like to do is I like to open the specimen at 3 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock, like that, okay? And then what you can do, and it's actually pretty easy to become disoriented with these specimens if you start sectioning them and whatnot. I'm going to put them there and there. And then, instead of doing, like I said, like the pie-like fashion, like this, 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 we're just going to do perpendicular sections to the squamocolumnar junction or the ectocervical endocervical junction and submit it like that instead. So I'm going to do one half at a time, but let me zoom in so we can take a better look at this. So I'm first going to divide it up into this one quadrant over here, okay? And then all you're going to have to do is just simply cut perpendicular sections to the squamocolumnar junction. So we're going to have 3 sections for that quadrant, okay? And then over here, we're going to have 3 sections as well. Now see how I did those nice perpendicular sections instead of this pie-like or pie-shape like fashion? Now let's go back down to this one over here, okay? Now as you can see, there's a little bit of a defect in it, probably at the interface between the ectocervical margin and the endocervical margin right here. We're just going to try to do the best we can. So once again, we're going to divide this up, okay? And put this over here, and put this over here, okay? And then we're going to cut perpendicular sections once again to the squamocolumnar junction, also called the ectocervical endocervical junction, just like that. So we got nice perpendicular sections there as well. Now this one, like I said, we're just going to do the best we can. I'm probably just going to make one section like that, and then right there, okay? So now, it's just a matter of submitting them in your cassettes. Let me zoom out. Once again, it's just a matter of submitting these. And like I said, if you're submitting them per clock face, you can certainly, say that in your dictation. But otherwise, you just want to submit them in a sequential fashion. In these 4 blocks. Nice perpendicular sections.